Welcome to our Circle of Friends implementation webinar. My name
Hello.
is Marla Bergwager, and I was with all of you back on November.
This is his wife. He's at work. He's hard of hearing, and he's asked me to do the scheduling for him.
Could everyone please mute themselves so that we can get started? Thank you. And my name is Marla Bergwager. I'm just so pleased that we're able to do this follow-up session to the 20th event. My colleague Max Zubatsky and I really enjoyed the chance to provide the Circle of Friends training, and just could not be more excited that there are so many of you that want to learn more about it. And we're hoping that means that you're really intent on developing the groups in the Kansas City area. So what I'd like to do is kind of go over what our plan for today is, introduce my colleagues to you briefly, who can talk more about themselves when they speak. But we want to get started, and so we can cover as much ground as we can and answer all your questions and address all the issues by 11 o'clock. So our required slides about where our funding comes from is, as we mentioned back in November, our work in this area is really made possible by a federal grant from the Health Resources and Services Administration, along with a current grant that we have from a local organization called the Regional Health Commission here in the St. Louis area. So our plan for today, we know that most of you have experience facilitating groups, so we are not going to spend much time at all on issues related to promotion and recruitment or establishing ground rules. But we did think that, it's important to kind of talk about those, particularly in light of the fact that we assume for at least the foreseeable future, these, and possibly long-term, these groups will be held virtually. So it's an important piece to think about what's different. And again, I suspect most of you have wisdom that you can share. So we certainly please hope that you will chime in either via chat box or live during the discussion to share with us your strategies and how those have worked. We will spend really the bulk of today's session focusing on the operationalization, if you will, of the three core components. And you'll recall from the November training that those are, arts and inspiration, creativity, health, and exercise related issues, and then sort of reflection. And we are very, very fortunate that three of our partners have agreed to join us today, who have been facilitating and participating in Circle of Friends groups. That this portion of the webinar today will be led by Anna Brendy, who is a Master of Social Work student at St. Louis University, and she is getting ready to start her third Circle of Friends group this week, in fact. So she brings
Gina's text message saying
we also have with us two people who participated through the St. Louis Housing Authority groups that were meeting before COVID and have continued to support members through COVID and are in fact embarking on online groups now. And that is Marvin Bostic. Marvin is an MSW with the St. Louis Housing Authority, and Sharon Burnside, who was a participant and now a facilitator. And they've just really done some very creative things that they'll be sharing with you. And then we will kind of wrap up by talking about transitioning, to maintenance groups or beyond the leader facilitated groups. Talk about what we've learned, particularly from doing online. We will then hear from our partner in Kansas City, Danielle Wooten from the Kansas City Shepherd Center.
where you're at on the
Who, as you'll recall, has agreed to serve as a hub and she's going to talk about sort of next steps related to that. And then you see here on the agenda, questions and answers and open discussion. So as I've kind of alluded to, please at any point in the day, put your question in the chat box, but then kind of when we're finished with more of the formal presentation, we really want this to be very conversational. So we'll kind of open it up. People can ask questions live and have discussion, tell us kind of what you're thinking or what you're concerned about, those kinds of things. So with that, we are going to have a kind of polling question. So Carmelia, if you can put the polling question up, we want to just get a sense from everyone kind of where people are at in terms of, has anyone started to offer a group? Have you made plans to? And if so, what time frame? So if everyone could please complete that, we will get a quick sense here. I love these polling features. It's such a great way to get instant information. Thank you, Carmelia, for setting that up. And while people are continuing to respond, I really would be very remiss if I didn't give a big thank you to Mark, specifically Kathy Boyer-Schessel and Carmelia Anderson for the support and all the work that they have put into us being able to share all of this information with you. We are just beyond excited to be able to spread the word about this wonderful intervention to the Kansas City area, and to thank them greatly for their support in doing that. So Carmelia, it looks like that we have about a quarter, 8 people who responded, who have actually started Circle of Friends programs. That's amazing, wonderful. And if you're planning to implement a Circle of Friends, estimated time frame, within a month, within 2 to 3 months, looks like the majority 4 to 6 months. So thank you. So those of you that have started groups already, I hope you will be throughout the next 2 hours, if you will be sharing your experiences with us. Please just, again, chime in at any point in the chat box or live. Raise your hand and we can address, your questions or your input, because it's people who are on the front lines doing this work that really have the wisdom about it. So that's what today is about, is to share that with everyone. So, okay, I think we can close out. Carmelia, do I just hit the X to close out the poll?
Yes, everyone will need to close out their own poll box.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. All right, so at this point, I want to hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Max Zabatsky. You all recall him from the November training. Max is the program director of the Medical Family Therapy Program in the School of Medicine at St. Louis University, and the founder and director of the St. Louis University Aging and Memory Clinic, and is really the vision behind us being able to offer this, particularly virtually, through this very challenging time that we're living in. And so Max and the grad students that we work with have learned a lot about promoting and recruiting. So let me turn it over to you now, Max. Thank you.
Thanks, Marla. Appreciate the intro, and it's truly been a collaborative effort on our front at SLU. And again, echoing to Carmelia, Mark, and Kathy, thanks so much for having us again for round 2 of Circle of Friends today. And I think this will be a much more in-depth talk that we can be more interactional, again, as Marla said in the chat box, but also more implementation. So today will be kind of the nuts and bolts of on the ground, how you can implement strategies and be able to use those skills. And again, we can troubleshoot any Q&A to the best of our ability in the chat box. And be able to answer some questions for you too. And as Marlo said, virtually we've been adapting a lot, and there's been a lot of changes and transitions that we've had at SLU. Not only with the virtual platform, but I think just being able to recruit and promote new participants. Prior to the pandemic, in as recent as February of last year, we had about 3 or 4 groups on campus on Monday mornings, and we had a carved out clinic. Fast forward to now, between Circle of Friends and a few of our other programs, we have 11 virtual groups going on right now. So it has really exploded, and we don't see virtual going away. Certainly, we all want to get back to in-person groups, and curious from all of you. And feel free in the chat box to, if you have any, challenges or things you just kind of want to ping pong around the recruitment or strategy front. We're always happy to do that too. I'm happy to go back and forth, but a lot of this will be just kind of some simple recruitment strategies, especially for those that are coming on board in the next month or two, or even 4 to 6 months, because it does take some time, as many of you probably know. Anna can probably attest to it as well, and a few of our other students. It takes some heavy lifting for the recruitment process up front there. So if we go to the next slide, I know for promotion and recruitment, we'll just show you a few of our recruitment strategies. And I love these pictures here. Certainly, Sharon and Marvin can weigh in at any point too. These are both pins that they've had in their groups, kind of a bulletin board where we love the statement, embrace the Zoom, and our recruitment flyer that we have at SLU on the bottom there. So, as far as recruitment goes with Circle of Friends, every group is not created equal. Certainly it's a unique group, and there's some unique challenges that happen in every group, and not only with SLU, but with the Housing Authority, Aging Developmental Disabilities, a lot of our community partners, and as well as those out there that you'll be working with. You really want to know the needs of your group, and really doing a screening and assessment up front of each participant is really, really important. So really making sure that you're knowing not only if there's any challenges, but also a lot of their strengths and really what they want to get out of it. Because there's really a range in Circle of Friends of where people want to go. It's most effective if groups are homogeneous. Certainly that means in a specific setting. If you are working with a nursing home setting or a series of nursing homes or assisted living, making sure that you try to keep the living environment somewhat consistent, I think is really important too. I think though virtual has opened it up more bandwidth for people to participate virtually, and it's certainly helped out a lot, and we've seen that too. And again, we can talk about some other things as well too. Identifying the target group. So again, you want to assess really for loneliness and social isolation early on. But again, loneliness is a very subjective assessment, and people can define that differently. Some people may have extreme loneliness that gets to the point of being depressed. Others may have just minimal loneliness and be able to just enjoy the company of socializing with others. So you really want to know what your members really want out of this, and really developing a plan up front. I always see this as a both and intervention. I think it's both adhering to the protocol and some of the themes, which we'll discuss later, but I think it's also a lot of flexibility in where your participants want to go. And again, some of our graduate students have said, I think really point blank to us, that the essence of the group members is really what they want to get out of this. And I think especially during the pandemic, and just a sense of connection, really keeping it simple there. So I'm curious, as I'm going through this, maybe a few of you that are starting up in the next month or two, maybe if you want to put in the chat box, like what you see as maybe your biggest challenge. I'm curious about that. It could be a statement or a word or anything. Feel free to use the chat box, and I can go back and forth there. I know for us, one thing has been just maybe contacting people, even as a simple challenge. But if any of you have stuff, feel free to use that at any time too. So we'll go to the next slide and get into the tech setup. So as far as some of the needs for participants and needs of facilitators, obviously, a lot of this is going to be the platform right now of Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Skype or whatever you may have. I think you need to know both sides and both roles of what technology is going to mean. I know one thing that we've learned, and I've seen this in the chat box too, as far as tech setup and tech issues, has been kind of a big platform for us. We were kind of joking, saying after the first couple of CST and Circle of Friends groups, we were almost like IT consultants trying to just help people on board, or I forgot what they call, like at Best Buy, or they have the Geek Squad. So we're kind of like helping them out tech wise there too. So but as far as what participants need, do they have access to phone or video? I think certainly works. And do they have a care partner that can really help them with the device? That's one thing up front in the screening and assessment you're going to really want to hit home is, do people have an emergency contact or backup person that you can troubleshoot with? Oftentimes people may just need another contact just to remind them about a time or to help them, but we found a lot around that too. And a reminder about how they get appointments. Again, you can always err on over communication. That's one thing we found too. Never take for granted if you send out a timer link that someone knows about that. Make sure that you kind of set up a consistent schedule that people have. If you can have same day, same time, it really makes things important, and that you're accessible if people want to reach out to you in case you have any questions as well too. I'm already seeing some stuff in the chat box of
Yeah, we have a couple of questions, Max. Would you like to take those?
Sure.
Now, the first one was, oh, I need to scroll back to where it was. Is homogeneous enough if living alone at home and having a hard time with loneliness due to COVID? Is that, I think, informing your group and making it homogeneous? Yeah,
and I think it's not a perfect science as far as having everyone in a similar setting, and nor should you have that expectation. I think, we actually have had one person reaching out trying to get in our Circle of Friends group now. I just got a call from the child caregiver, and she came back from assisted living, is now living with a family member. So there's a transition there. She wants to get back in. So certainly, I mean, this is more of a connection for people. I think if it's more so kind of if people are declined as far as their mood or physical state, and there's other limitations, I think that's where that criteria sometimes can compromise a little bit of the group or the conversation. But certainly you can have a mix of settings. Yeah.
And then the next one is, has it worked if one or two of the group call in, thinking it's best to start the first group with all who can access Zoom?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've been having many combinations of that, whether it's all video, half phone, most call in. We actually had one group where two of our grad assistants did an all calling group. Actually went pretty well. It was an existing group before, but they made it a Circle of Friends. I think it can work. And again, I know, Marvin, Sharon, and Anna will, get it, to the inroads of the group and the dynamics later on around that too. But yeah, I think the combination, certainly you can have that work. And I think sometimes it's a necessity just to connect people. I think one thing you want to kind of prioritize, making sure that people check in by phone, because if they can't see or track the conversation, you just want to make sure that you leave enough time for the phone check-ins to happen, and making sure you just set your agenda a little bit differently than everyone can see on the screen like we are now. So.
Okay. And then another question, ways to find groups and examples. We're talking about recruitment.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, what we've done is, I mean, we've had a number of different resources doing that. Certainly with SLU, and I'm sure our community partners can, touch base on what they've done as well. And, Sharon and Marvin can feel free to jump in anytime. What we've done at SLU, we're connected a lot with our geriatrics and internal medicine department. So we get some referrals, and even from geriatric psychiatry fairly quick. And we also have a few community partners on other grants who have helped us refer. So we've had some inroads just from a university level, some stuff that's been built in. I think in the community where you have more in housing units in specific communities, being strategic, and sometimes it's a snowball, like it's a word of mouth that gets out. I know Marvin and Sharon have shared that with us as well, in stuff that they've used.
And then the last one for call-in, do you use free conference call?
Yeah, so we use Zoom, and it's an open access Zoom link with the phone line. That's a conference call. Yeah, we try to keep the parameters as open and loose as possible. So if they want to call into that, it's the same link and it's the same phone number for the entire group. There's no restrictions on waiting rooms. There's no restrictions on any passcodes or anything. People can are able to get in. We want to eliminate any of the barriers or challenges for people to just log on and get in. Because if you can eliminate any steps for people virtually, it makes life a lot easier for groups. So that's been much more successful for us. So, all right. Great question so far, boy. Yeah, and I know there's a lot around the tech access technology people have been talking about, and the ways to find groups. So yeah, again, as far as advertising, I mean, we use our website a lot. I mean, if you have through your organization or agency can post something on the website, certainly talk with other providers in the area. I know virtually it's tough, but if you can talk with community centers, with churches, with any local organizations that can really spread the word to older adults, it really helps. And again, we can kind of troubleshoot or talk about some of those things too. All right. So the needs of the facilitators as well too. We need obviously stuff to set up and prep ahead of time. So having multiple facilitators help out. We can't stress that enough. I think if you have a backup facilitator and someone that can help, it helps, with coverage issues. Making sure that there's a walkthrough appointment. Sharon mentioned about the Zoom cheat sheet. Yeah, I mean, we have a setup kind of instructions or tech walkthrough. I think having that walkthrough session initially really helps participants if they can do that, so that they can write that down. Again, I think on the needs of the participants, having a caregiver or person either in the loop or sending them a copy really helps, so that they know and they could remind people of that as well too. And what the walkthrough basically is you set up a standalone session. We do a few assessments, but say, okay, if you're on phone and we're gonna walk you through the steps of getting on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever platform it is, a series of instructions or steps, and we can email that to them. And then we'll go through and kind of just play with everything on Zoom. So the share screen button, the video, the mute, how to see views differently. So it's just kind of a blank canvas. You're playing with them on Zoom for 15, 20 minutes, just troubleshooting anything there. And then we'll kind of just talk with them and run through what some typical sessions will be like. You can ask any Q in there too, but it's almost like a mock run through of onboarding process, saying, okay, we're logged on, this is what it'll be like, and these are the interactive tools that we have. So I think for every person, if you have time to do a walkthrough session, including if you do any pre-assessments or any screening questions you want to find out more information, and we'll talk more about that later, I think it really helps. So, all right. So we're done with the technology part. We will move on to the next session about establishing ground rules. And this is always a good refresher for any group. As far as things just to keep in mind, I always say it's kind of, like any group, cognitive stimulation therapy, we talk about all different personalities that come up in groups around introverts, monopolizers, troublemakers, peacemakers. We get that sometimes in professional groups too. But certainly within community groups, you want to make sure to manage the group and set ground rules. But I think it's really important in these type of groups, that you structured and have an agenda that you set from up front. The main thing is in the group, respecting the opinions of others and respecting where people are coming from. I think one of the toughest things in alluding to point two there is not to turn this into group psychotherapy. I always, tell a lot of people there's a difference between process groups and psychotherapy groups and support groups. I see Circle of Friends as even more of a process or connection group. It's not to diagnose, treat, or to single out people who are going through a bad day. Certainly group members want to support them, and I think that's important. I think the real art to this is going to be how you can manage someone going through a difficult time, yet weigh in the opinions and get perspectives from other people in the group, all while seeing if you can stick with maybe a theme or touch base with them on something. So that's the essence of working with groups. Confidentiality is also really a key thing there too. So we always say what happens in the group stays in the group. And so if there are, information or anything that maybe, they share with, family around what they got out of it, make sure that it's general information and we're not singling anyone out. We've gotten questions around if people are really struggling, whether to get a release to talk with their provider, someone or so forth. We haven't had really too many of those experiences. However, we have given some resources for people maybe who want to seek therapy services or another support group as well too. So I think offering that as well. But if you see really people in crisis, then I think, the facilitators can kind of troubleshoot and, maybe work with that a little bit more. Arriving on time when the group starts, that's certainly not a perfect science. Some can log on 10 minutes early, some can log on 15 minutes late. So just kind of handling that, not everyone's going to arrive at that 5-minute mark right before the group starts. It's going to be a perfect transition. And I'm sure Anna, Sharon, Marvin, and all of us know, keep your agenda flexible. You have the best laid plans for an agenda, just like if you're teaching a class or you have a day of doing mental health therapy, something's going to change and something could be unexpected. So embrace the unexpected. And I think that's sometimes the beauty of the group is that you're helping people and you may have really good surprises. You may have something of a more serious topic you want to handle. And so you want to, make sure that you're really addressing that. And then if there's any distractions, during the session, just let the facilitator know ahead of time. I think that's really important. Like if there's going to be, background noise, or if they have to leave for 15 minutes to take another call, maybe just say, is there any heads up that we have to know before the group starts? So that, they're not, kind of troubleshooting in the back there for what's going on.
Max, we have another question. What about talking with their emergency contact or family?
Yeah, great question. I think, again, having that care partner or caregiver up front, having them, give a name for someone. I think, we always get more of a verbal release of information and consent from people so that we can talk with them. And I think almost everyone's been pretty comfortable with that for the most part. I think that's essential not only to have as far as the technology set up, but we can check in or we can just say, hey, so-and-so's doing a really good job in the group, or, we may, if we're worried about the fit for the group in the early sessions, may just touch base with them. There could be the opposite issue where they want to check in or find out how they're doing persistently. So I think you got to keep boundaries around that, and just, generally saying they're participating in the group and things are going well without giving really any specific information. So I think just like any, type of mental health confidentiality, you just got to make sure that you keep your boundaries as a facilitator and ethically protect the group. Again, if there is a crisis situation or something that is a little bit more urgent, certainly then you can ask the participant to talk with the emergency contact and talk with them. But so, all right. Good deal. Well, I'm going to hand it over the core components agenda and activities. So we will get to that section right now.
Excellent. So with
Anna,
circ
sorry.
oh so I'm Anna, and I'm in my last semester of my MSW at SLU. And this I'm starting about to facilitate my third Circle of Friends group. So I've been doing this for about 8 months with this group, but I've been facilitating groups for about 2 years. So the Circle of Friends has 3 core components for the activities. So weeks 1 through 4 are kind of focused on health and wellness. Sorry about my virtual background is just going crazy here. I feel like I'm in a, oh boy. Well, you can still hear me. Then the second section is on arts and culture. When the group was in person, it used to be arts and crafts, but that we kind of transitioned that to arts and culture because virtually we're not ever sure what supplies people have in their house. And this kind of allows for everyone to engage and participate. So we still have the option for people to do arts and crafts projects as long as they have the supplies they already in their own home. And then the third section is on writing and reflection. So we can go through that a little bit more. So groups may need or want more or less structure. So for more shy groups that are having a little more trouble getting conversation started, sometimes more structure is the way to go. So having a more set agenda, prompts with questions to kind of get them more comfortable with discussing and starting conversations with each other. And some people may not have a lot of opinions and just say, oh, a lot of my participants say, oh, I'm just interested in anything. And I'm like, oh, what do you want to do? What are you interested in? And sometimes it's hard to get an answer. So that's when the structure kind of steps in, and then we have these planned activities. But really individualizing the topics and activities to the interests of the participants is more important than staying with the themes. So the themes are kind of there as a backbone structure. But then if the participants want to go off of that, if they're really interested in other topics, other ideas. We had one group that was really interested in talking about social justice. So they had multiple weeks where they were talking about that, and they kind of created their own theme on that. But it's important to make sure that everyone's comfortable with changing to a new topic. And so a lot of that comes out in the interviews, the pre-interviews that we do, and what people are interested in. So Sharon and Marvin, do you want to kind of share a little bit about how you all decide on your activities? And
Sure. I'll start off in terms of the core components like health and wellness. What we have a tendency to do is that, like Max said, we try to do our homework early on by letting residents decide what type of activities, what kind of health things, and what type of topics they want to talk about. They give them an opportunity to be a part of the planning process. With the St. Louis Housing Authority, we currently have 7 groups. 5 of those groups are in their second year working with the Circle of Friends. So with the health and wellness component, what we normally do, we have partnerships with St. Louis University as well as with the University of Missouri School of Nursing. So if we have some health issues, we give the students, master level students, opportunity to come in to do health fairs, and particularly when we was on site, they'll come to development and actually do that. So we include the Circle of Friends individuals within that component, and they talk about various different topics like they do exercise, they do health and wellness projects, they do bingos, and they do things like that to keep them active, which is a very good component of it. As far as art and culture, before the pandemic, because we had a large number of groups, what we did was we broke those groups down. Good example, like we have 2 facilities. If we got 8 people in each of those groups at different developments, we do a outing. We'll take them to the art museum. We will also give them an opportunity to, they went to forums, like in St. Louis, we have what you call the Eckers Forums, and we take them there. We venture out to the Science Museum. What happens with that aspect is that you got 2 buildings, all in a circle of friends, some similar, some not. But what that does is they expand their friendship because they get the opportunity to know other individuals. So they get to communicating. And then what you'll find is that they're a binding process. They'll start calling each other, and then they'll start projecting what other type of things that they want to do. So you have a larger number of people participating now and making demands, or well, I won't say demands, but making requests of what type of things that they're going to do, was a great thing. So, and then we'll, since there's so many of them, we'll then connect another group together and try to find and do pretty much the similar things with them. So that makes it very well-being in terms of making these residents up where they can actually get done. The positive aspect with the housing authority, we are homogeneous because most of the residents are living in place independently in a senior development. So it make it easier for us to link the services up for the residents because simple reason they are there. But what you'll find is too that some of these residents may not know each other because some are considered isolated and they don't come out their apartments. So we have to identify who those individuals are who don't come out of the apartments to bring them into the circle of friends. So that's a process in itself as well. But usually in terms of the residents get an opportunity to know each other because simple reason they'll come down to get their mail or they'll come down to talk with the manager of the facility, and the manager of the facility sometimes recognize those individuals who don't come out their apartment, and then refer them to the circle of friends group. So that is a great aspect of one of the things that we do. Art and culture, again, that is something that they have a lot of projects that they do. And these residents create their own projects. So we already know ahead when they say that, hey, we like to do a vision board, or we like to do an exercise program. We like to do a specific project. So what we normally do is, during our normal group discussion, after we talk about other issues, we put that on the table in terms, okay, and we make a democratic decision, what we're going to do next. And then the residents make that decision, not the facilitators. We just make sure that it happens. So that is a extremely important aspect of what we do. But these residents, and being that we're right there and they're right there in the developments, it make it easier for us to actually do the things we need to do and try to keep that going. I'm gonna back up a little bit and talk about what Max talked about in terms of the technology. That was an issue for us, because for some reason a lot of residents did not know how to use a tablet, so, or they didn't know how to use the internet. So we had to backtrack to make sure that they learn how to utilize that. Some of the newer groups, we normally start off with what you call a conference calls. And for the first year, that's one group at Cambridge Senior, that's all we did was conference call. We talk on the phone and things of that nature. But now we're at a point where we can provide tablets and technology to them. So they're in the process of now learning how to use these tablets. And what I have done with that process, once we purchased some tablets, I found a training program on Google, which give them the opportunity to go in to learn how. A good example, this is a tablet that we have, which a group that I was telling you that did only conference call. they're in the process of now learning how to utilize these tablets. So there's instructions that show them how to go about using a tablet, how they can communicate. And then what we do is provide like Max was talking about, we do an individual training with each individual to show them how to go around, to give them time to catch up. So that's one of the groups that we're doing right now. Some groups already know how to use tablets. So when we assess our residents, we look at in terms of who's within that group who got skills. So because it's a kind of like a retirement place anyway, they living in place. You're talking about low income individuals. You heard that they talk about living in place where whatever. We have to bring programs directly to the developer. So by them living in place, we get an opportunity to bring them to the forefront by giving them programs and stuff like that within each facility. So it works. It's been working very well for us. If we have somebody who is a retired teacher or someone who has experience as a previous social worker or a teacher, that means that they already have a job. They have ideas and they got great plans that they can share with the other groups. So I look in terms of that, in terms of who can be a leader within these particular groups. A good example is Sharon Bernstein, who's now is a facilitator. She had a lot of experience. So she came in with some things, even though she was part of a circle friend group. It just makes sense to pull her out of that group and then give her an opportunity to be a facilitator for another group and teach some of the skills that we already had. So those are some things that have been very good. Writing reflections, we give we have classes for that. We have residents who actually have wrote books. A good example is the book here at West Pine. They created their own books and did their own stories. And basically within this book, it talks about how the circle friends have helped them and how they've been able to establish friendship within the developments. And a good example, here's another one which another group wrote, but just basically going back talking about them growing up. It's a little bit more detailed. They talk about their parents. They talk about a lot of more confidentiality things that I never did think that would come up. So, but they put it in their own writing. And basically what we did was we helped them edit it and put it in a format of a book for them. So, that way they can share with their family, their grandkids or whatever. So they have their own individual stories in there. So those are just a few things that we have done. Some projects include like over Christmas. I'll let Sharon talk about that, but they do like they have did quilts. They have done. They made Christmas ornaments, vision boards. They have done quite a few projects, and some of the things that they do, their art project in Kansas City. You guys probably have this as well, called the Senior Olympics. If you're 50 and over, you can compete in the Senior Olympics. What we have done, or what I have done, I've taken some of their artwork and placed that into the St. Louis Senior Olympics art competition. And whatever items that they create, whether it's a picture or uses art, that they have drawn or some project they have created, I register that item and put it in the Senior Olympics. And what they normally do is they have a voting process, a committee, and they choose and select whatever art that they have done. And then they give them a medal or a ribbon in terms of, like they got a gold medal, a silver medal, and they have a bronze medal, and they have ribbons. So we have had several residents who won medals or ribbons, and that inspired them even more. to become more creative, because then they get to the point where they want to make projects every year just to be able to put it in the Senior Olympics, and where their family can go out there and they put their art, in a parlor where people, and put a little ribbon on and put a gold medal on it, and that inspired them even more to participate. But I'm gonna turn it over to
Oh,
Sherman.
and
Go ahead.
I was going to say that we're going to kind of dive into each of these themes now and talk about specific activities for each one, the difference between in-person and how we've made it virtual, how we've made it for audio only or video. And so we'll get a chance to kind of dive into each of these activities a little more with some photos. And so can we go on to the next slide? We'll also go over the agenda.
There are a few questions. Would you guys like
Sure.
during those first?
Mhm.
A couple of technology questions. What is the name of the tablet training program? And do people get to keep the tablets, or are they loaned to them?
Well, for the housing authority, what I have done with the tablets, they're going to keep the tablets. Okay, one of the stipulations that I've done is, really, to be honest with you, is that once we purchase a tablet, there are their tablets. And what we normally do is that part of them keeping the tablets, they have to give us at least 80% of participation within the group. Okay, so they're participating, they're doing the things that they needed with the circle of friends. Then they be at the end of that time period, those tablets become theirs. It's very difficult to try to monitor tablets and take them back and forth and stuff like that. But I think right now, with the tablets that I have, which we just got these, there's other programs that was associated with it's not necessarily directly with the Circle of Friends, but there's other programs that I link residents into. And we have gotten some Chromebooks through another grant. And they also may participate in another group in terms of like a arts and craft thing or cooking class. So these residents get opportunity to use those tablets, those Chromebooks, to participate in other virtual programs. So if OASIS have a program, then they have access to link into a different program. But the primary purpose of it is really for the Circle of Friends, but give them an opportunity to continue to go through that process. So to answer your question, yes, at the end after they finish, we allow them to keep the tablets. Because I said it's very difficult to try to monitor them once you release those tablets to a senior, to be honest with you, they feel that it's theirs, and then you just have to make sure that they're doing what they need to do to participate, because grandkids or whatever, they're going to get those tablets at some point and start to play around on with games and things on that as well. But
also with Marvin
will-
and Sharon's groups, they typically continue on past the 12 weeks. So with the groups here at
That's true.
SLU, we have kind of an end of the group and we help them transition to maintenance and meeting on their own. But with Marvin and Sharon's groups, since they are all living in the same building typically, they will continue those groups as long as the people want to meet. And then as people leave, naturally, they'll add more folks to the group. So it's a little bit more different of a setup between our two groups.
that's true.
And I
Mhm.
will just add for the Kansas City area, Connecting for Good, which is now PCs for People, they have, you can get some internet and devices from them here in the Kansas City area. And Jewish Family Services just started a tech program where they actually forming small groups, and they get a tablet and an internet for a year, and then they meet, I think, for 8 weeks. I'm maybe a little bit off on that. And they do training every week to teach them how to use that. So that could be another option here in the Kansas City area if you have someone that needs some tech services.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, great.
So I'm going to dive into the first week sample agenda. So this is what I use to start off when I'm starting a new group. And typically our groups at SLU need a little bit more structure since people are meeting for the very first time. from all different backgrounds, living situations. So our groups typically have a little bit more structure than the St. Louis Housing Authority groups. So I'll have Sharon share about what that looks like after I do our sample agenda. So typically we'll introduce ourselves, the facilitators. It's much more informal. We'll go over the ground rules, which Max shared. I'll add a couple. We also have the general rule of sharing the mic. So noticing how much you're speaking and making sure that everyone has a chance to share roughly equal amounts of time is a good ground rule. And then group introductions, we can go into what their name, where they're from, if they have any grandkids, maybe if they used to work, what their profession was, and anything else that they might like to share. We can throw in some silly questions, anything to kind of get the ball rolling with icebreakers. And then we'll go into kind of the group purpose and expectations. So I always kind of share that the purpose is to connect people with others and the goal of building friendships that can continue past the end of the group. And so I kind of share that the end goal isn't the activities, the end goal is for them to get to know each other, and the activities and discussion topics are the road that we're taking to get there. So then we also like to go around and say what people are expecting or want to gain from the group. So people can have a chance to hear that other people are in the same boat as them. Other people maybe are feeling lonely and want to be more connected, or have felt a little isolated during COVID and want to meet new people. And then we'll go over the overview of the topics and the themes for the 12 weeks. But I just usually like to focus on the next few weeks, so not thinking too far ahead. So I would go over, since we usually start with health and wellness, these are all the ideas that I kind of gathered from you in our interviews. Which ones do you like? Which ones do you not like? Is there any other ideas you'd like to add? And then we kind of take a vote on which ones we like most. And then me and my co-facilitator will work to schedule those activities for the next few weeks once we decide as a group what people like. And then that discussion usually takes at least 15 minutes. And we'll go into feedback, what people liked about the day, anything that they would want to see change in the future, or what they specifically liked that they'd like to see stay. And then we'll go into any questions, technological questions, and talk about what next week will look like. And we typically on the first day, we ask people to try to sign in a little early, and then me and my co-facilitator will sign on the Zoom at least half hour early and be sitting next to our phones in case people have questions, need help walking through Zoom. And usually there are the first session, we don't really get into a lot of specific activity, because a lot of it is kind of, even though we've walked through each individual person through with Zoom, a lot of tech things come up, and we have to kind of resolve that as we go. But that's also helpful why we have two facilitators, because one person can have themselves muted and be on the phone with a participant, helping them walk through, maybe getting their video turned on, while the other person is still continuing on leading the group, so that not everyone has to just sit there and wait while people get their technology figured out. And I just saw a question about how do you feel about religion and politics in the group. I'd say that really depends on the group and what people's expectations are and what they're comfortable with. We had one group that wanted to talk about politics, and they were all like in the similar mindset as far as their political leaning, and they really enjoyed those discussions. The group that I'm starting now, we had a few people I could tell in the interviews were very passionate about their politics, but on totally different sides. So, and one person that specifically asked that we not talk about religion and politics in the group. So with this specific group, we're going to avoid talking about religion and politics. And I think for groups that are much more from all different backgrounds, I think that's helpful to avoid those topics as we're just getting to know each other, and then let that happen naturally as they become better friends with each other and have those one-on-one discussions. So can we go on to the next slide, please? This is what a typical session agenda would look like anywhere in those 12 weeks. What we do is typically starting with some kind of centering activity. We had a physical therapist come and talk about mindfulness and breathing exercises in the first few weeks, and they really enjoyed it. So we decided to enact a breathing exercise to start out our group every week after that. So then we'll go into catching up and we'll chat about how everyone's week was, anything that they want to talk about, anything that's on their mind. And then we'll go into our activity. We'll always leave a few minutes at the end for questions, feedback, and interests in what the upcoming activities will look like, and if they want anything to change or if they are excited about those, kind of like always get feedback and then tweak if it sounds like they're not interested in something anymore. So Sharon, would you like to share kind of how your typical session runs?
Sure, thank you. I think the key to our success has been flexibility. And because our model is a little different in that we are a facility where pre-COVID, we had a community room where we could meet and, do our projects and talk about the things that we wanted to discuss. Currently with the COVID-19, we have to rely upon our telephone chain more or less to remind people that we are in fact still continuing to meet. But our flexibility is very, it's like, okay, what do you think? Yes or no? And then we would proceed from there. So our purpose and main intent really was about developing relationships. We were pretty open in terms of, what our projects would be or what we wanted to discuss. We did take the Vegas concept of what happens in the circle of friends stays in the circle of friends. At the beginning of each meeting, if we saw that there was something or someone made an indication that there was something that they really did want to discuss within that group before we got started, of course, we were open to hearing their challenges. And in terms of starting our meetings, we tried to keep it to an hour or hour and a half. Sometimes we did go over a little bit. And of course, we have to make allowances for people who have doctor's appointments and things like that. So, and then just reminding everybody on the days of the meeting. But we also, I want to go back and address the technology part, the challenges that some of our residents have. It didn't necessarily start with Zoom. It started with terminology and with the fact that when some people heard email, that was like a panic button for them. A lot of us in our age category are still getting accustomed to smartphones and how to get the correct cable channel to watch and those types of things. So, we were constantly encouraging people that it is something that you can do, and that even if you don't have an email, we can help you set up one. If you're not comfortable with being on the video, we can do a call in. So you just have to be prepared to recruit and retain at whatever level those particular members, are at. Or if a person lost their phone and that was their main way of communicating, starting all over again. So those are things that we were constantly addressing.
Oh. Sharon, I think you're muted now.
Okay, here we go. There we go.
Okay, there we go.
So those are some of the things that we had to address early on. And in terms of your model, Anna, in terms of your weeks and how they were divided up. We pretty much just, in getting to know each other, when we talked about what projects we wanted to work on, instead of asking everybody what they wanted to do, we talked about some things that when we were working adults that we always thought that we might want to try that we never got around to. So it was pretty much, like, well, I always wanted to learn how to do this. And then within our group, in terms of developing these relationships, we would learn that there are people who not only knew how to do that, but they were quite adept at teaching others. So it was a thing where the skill sets were passed around. And if we started a project and we weren't very enthusiastic about it, within a week, we would know that, you know what, we really don't want to know. We really don't want to try that one. Let's try something else. So you weren't locked into a specific project. And we were very fortunate in that we are kind of under the umbrella of the housing authority. So even if we did not have all of the necessary supplies, once we chose a project, we were able to enlist the help of Marvin. And he made sure that we had the things that we needed, to do. And we do have some members now who are still a little gun shy with the Zoom or whatever, but they're kind of coming along, So it's one of those things where we had a different approach. It really was about developing a circle of friends. It was learning about, reminiscing about neighborhoods and where we grew up in St. Louis. Everybody wants to know what high school you went to. So, and as a result of that, we've been able to maintain connections during COVID. Even though we're in the same facility, we still have to be mindful of that. So our biggest thing right now is trying to find new things to do that everybody is capable of doing in their own individual apartments, but also able to share as a group. So
and we have a question about the technology, so I'll kind of lead into that. What I've seen from you, Sharon, is always empowering. Your focus is on empowering with the technology, because there seems to be a big fear about technology, and just kind of that the main barriers. Maybe they do have a tablet, they do have a phone or computer, but they just don't know how to use it, and there's just fear about it. So what I've seen from you when we've been preparing for this is how much you talk about just encouraging people and how much that will do to just encourage people, like simplify it, say, hey, yeah, I know this is frustrating, but you can do this, and we're going to do it together, and we're going to take as long as it takes, but you're going to get on, and you're going to really love it.
Exactly.
So,
we
embrace the Zoom sign.
Yeah, embrace the Zoom. Yes. What I've learned is, of course, when we could meet in person, I could tell them, I could say to another circle of friends member, well, come on, give me your phone. Let's see, how much do you know? Are you on Facebook? Have you ever checked your bank balance over the phone? Give them something that they're already kind of comfortable with, and then make the connection that way, that this is really the same. It's just one more thing that you're going to be really good at. And, if you get stuck, you can always call one of us. You can call your grandkid and say, what's that little red thing with the line through it? What does that mean? A lot of times it's the technology that gives people that pause. You can say, okay, we're going to share a screen, and I know what that means, but some people are like, what is that?
Right. So someone asked about terminology and how to describe the technology. And so what we try to do is, when I'm doing the pre-assessments, I'll schedule something on the phone. I'll send them an email with the Zoom link, but I'll say, don't worry about that for now. Whenever our meeting is, I will call you. So we'll get them on the phone, chit chat a little bit, get a little bit of rapport, and then walk through the steps of opening their email account. And some people, we can kind of gauge what their level of technology is. So maybe with the other day, I had someone that really wasn't comfortable even with emails, but she had an email account. So I walked through steps. Okay, open your email account. Okay, click on something that says inbox. All right, look for an email from myself. Okay, now in that email, you see a blue link. And then, so we simplify it, not like in a patronizing way, but trying not to use overly technological terms.
Yes.
So describing things as what they look like versus their technical name. So I'm not going to say, all right, unmute yourself. I'm going to say, okay, drag your arrow down to the left-hand corner of your screen. You'll see a little microphone with the word mute. Just click on that, and then you will be able to hear you, or we won't be able to hear you once you click that. So it's much more of like a verbal description of what things look like. And I always ask them, what are you seeing on your screen right now? Did you see anything pop up? What did it say? Can you describe it to me? And then just being really well versed in exactly what the steps and how things will pop up on someone's screen the first time if they've never opened a Zoom before is really helpful. So knowing, okay, if they have never used Zoom before, they're going to need to download Zoom. So that means that they're going to get a little folder that pops up in the bottom left-hand corner of their screen. They're going to have to click the little button. They're going to have to click open. They're going to have to click install, and then they're going to have to click finish. And then they will be able to click the link that will then open Zoom. So it's a lot of like patience, encouragement, and also praise when they're doing it, because this is something that was intimidating to them. This is something that they may be fearful of doing. And hey, look, now they've mastered Zoom. So it's a lot of encouragement and support along the way. And it takes a little bit of extra time. So you need to be willing to spend that time with people and be patient, because if they feel like you really don't care if they're there or not, and there is that little bit of barrier about the technology, they're not going to come. And that's been my experience. So we've just really tried to focus on giving quality time to each person with the tech support beforehand.
Yes, and sometimes I've found it, just to take it one step further, once they're getting a little comfortable, you know, I'm a index card person. You know, it's like, if you can write down the steps on the index card and stick it on the refrigerator so that the next time, you know, we have a call, you'll kind of have the next flow through, you know, on what to do. And then I always, you know, say to people, and then in no time at all, you'll be an expert at this, and it's going to be easy and it's going to be fun. But that's really our focus with the residents, where we're all in place in one spot. It is to have fun. It is to, you know, get people to come out and also to keep, to just keep it light. You know, people don't want to come to something where they think that they're going to have to fill out a lot of paperwork and, you know, not have a lot of say and just listen to a presentation. So we always try to keep that in mind. And learning about what people did before they retired really helps to understand where their level of interests are. That's very, you know, important. And also the circle of friends doesn't begin and end when the meeting is over. We do call each other like certain other days of the week. If you haven't seen somebody going past the mailbox, you know, once those, it's like a neighborhood. It's a group of people that are in a neighborhood, within a building, within a community. So you want to try to build on that, and you always want to make them as important, you know, as possible, because we do care about them, and we have to click. You know, we've had people who have come to see what we do, and they were pretty quiet, you know, and they just kind of popped in every now and then, but they really didn't stick around long enough to get the benefit of, you know, what a circle of friends can do. And then the other thing is, within your circle of friends, what are some of the things that how do you handle when a person is ill and in a long-term care facility? what happens when one of your circle of friends moves out of the building or off the property, and what happens when a circle of friends member passes away. Those are things that we have to discuss and talk about and share. Not only do we know them as a resident of the building, but they've now become like an extended family. So it doesn't just, at the end of 12 weeks, we're like, okay, so what's our next project going to be, as opposed to, how to maintain and, go out into the community. This is our community. And so that's important that we are able to come up with ideas. And sometimes it's not even a project. Sometimes it's just movie day, popcorn, bring the popcorn and we're going to watch a movie. Sometimes it's salad day. When we were able to meet in the community room, we would all bring stuff to make a salad, just developing those bonds of what it means to be a circle of friends. So now we have to do our martini hours and our salads, and we have to do that virtually. It can still be done, but it's very different. It's just different. So.
And I wanted to take a quick moment to answer a question in the chat box before we move on to specific activities. Someone said, if one person disagrees with the topic, do you squash the topic or take a vote? I want to always make sure that everyone is comfortable with the topics that we choose. So this is something that I will go over a lot of the common topics in the pre-interview when I'm getting to know the person, and make sure that if they have any concerns, anything that they really feel passionate about that they not talk about, or things that we do talk about, I make sure that then when I'm planning with my co-facilitator, we do avoid those topics in general, and we don't usually raise them as an option if we know that one person already would be very uncomfortable with that. But then if it's, for instance, something that they just aren't interested in, I'll ask them, oh, is it just that you're not interested in it? Would you still be willing to come to that session and just listen? Or is this something that you're uncomfortable talking about? So there's a difference there. And then I do highlight the fact that, the activities are the road that we're taking to get to know these people. So maybe if it's an activity that you're not super interested in, but everyone else is super interested in, would you be willing to still participate and have fun with that? And then maybe next week will be an activity that you'll enjoy more. But typically people are just interested in doing anything. But it's rare that I have someone be uncomfortable with the topic that we choose. Can we have the next slide? And then Marla, are we still taking a quick break, or should we keep moving because of the time?
I think we can take, let's see, it is 10:13. What about maybe 5 minutes real quick, just to let people stand up, refresh beverages or whatever. So maybe be back here by, 10:20.
Excellent. And then we'll dive into the specific activity ideas that we have.
Yes.
For you guys.
Great. Okay. So everybody, will see you back at 10:20.
I am in the process of taking attendance, and we have a few individuals where it's not matching up with my registration sheet. If I could get the following folks to look at their chat, I have a question in there for you to answer. The first one, you appear as, it looks like Audrey CC, the second Gina, and the third iPhone. If you could just check, it should be the last input in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, it is 10:20. We've want to make sure we use every minute of our time. So I'm going to turn it back over to Anna, who's going to continue with Sharon and Marvin to walk us through the activities that they've tried. So take it away, Anna.
Sure. So, all right. So we're going to start with the health and wellness section. Marla, are you pulling up the slides? Excellent.
Sorry, I should have had that up. I got too caught up in.
No worries.
All right.
All right. So with the health and wellness section, our SLU folks have been a little more interested in those topics. The Sharon and Marvin have shared that the St. Louis Housing Authority folks have a lot of health presenters coming in regularly already. So they weren't as interested in the health and wellness topics. Next slide. Thank you. Chair exercise is a big thing that we emphasize, as well as just simple exercises that you can do in your home. So this is usually, we focus one session on exercise. We've had a guest facilitator come in, retired physical therapist who's really excellent at leading chair yoga. So we've done that. And we've done breathing exercises and talking about kind of meditation and mindfulness and how you can incorporate that into your day with exercise. And with the virtual adaptation for exercises, we always try to include clear verbal descriptions of what we're doing. And another option, if you do have everyone on video, is that if you're not super well versed in leading exercises yourself, you can actually screen share and show a video that everyone can do their exercises along with. And this might be just a 10-minute exercise that we do together, and then we discuss exercise. It can also just be a discussion about exercise. Next slide. Okay, so other health discussions are the other topics that we do in the health and wellness section. So oftentimes a bunch of people might be interested in the same health topic, like psoriasis or vision loss or something like that. So we survey them for their interest. Sometimes we might have a guest presenter, but we try to limit that. And if we do have a guest presenter, having it be more laid back, less presenter style, more of like a peer-led discussion, and leaving it just making sure to leave plenty of time for conversation, because we're remembering that the point of these isn't education. The point is actually helping the participants get to know each other through this educational topic. So other things that we've been talking about a lot is nutrition. We're having one coming up on, people will share their favorite recipes, bring those to the group and talk about how they like to eat healthy, what eating healthy means to them, and sharing their favorite recipes. We've talked about mental health and what self-care actually means, and talking about what they can do with that practically. And sleep. We've actually had a session on sleep hygiene, since a lot of people are having trouble sleeping. But if we do have any guest presenters, we always try to make sure that they are really familiar with the platform and familiar what to expect, so that they know they're not coming in and just giving a lecture, that they know what the group dynamic is. They know that it's a small group and that it's going to be more discussion based, and exactly what time you want them to come. And making sure that they can share screen ahead of time if they're going to do that, and making sure those little details are ironed out ahead of time. Sharon, would you like to share anything on the health and wellness topics, activities that you guys have done?
Well, actually, our health and welfare, basically among the group, if anybody's having a particular health issue or challenge, you know, we all have our own individual physicians, but sometimes people are both having that same concern within the group. So just sharing information that we already have available to us, or if someone's willing to try something that's worked for one member, you know, they might be interested in doing that. When we have snacks, we try to eat healthy when we have our meetings, with some fruit or juice or something like that. So our nutrition part, unless somebody's willing to talk about some new thing that they tried in terms of meals or fruit or something that they noticed when they're shopping in the markets, it's pretty much an individual thing. And so it just depends on how it comes up in the topic of conversation.
So for you all, it's more natural kind of coming up in conversation versus having like a specific session dedicated to it.
Exactly.
And that kind of shows the difference between like our different group styles and what they need, because for you all, it's much more conversational and kind of tying in different themes for each session. Whereas for us, it's kind of one theme per session. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Can I see the next slide, Marla? Thank you. This is just a list of other ideas for health discussion topics. Favorite recipes, we already talked about that. Exercising after injury and what physical therapy people are doing. A lot of people are already doing physical therapy exercises, and we can just talk about how that's going for them, and kind of be accountability buddies to help keep folks on track. Walking inside or outside of the home. We can talk about the Mediterranean diet, mental health during the pandemic, and how difficult it's been for each person, self-care, coping with isolation and loneliness, and we already talked about the breathing exercises as well. So that can just be a starting list of other topics on health. Next slide. Excellent. So now kind of launching into, these are the craft projects. So a lot of these ones were done in person, and a lot of these ones the Sharon and Marvin have done, but we also talk a little bit about the virtual adaptation. So some things that have been done are photo collages, like craft activity with a holiday theme, like mandarin orange and jack-o'-lanterns, making cards, drawing, painting, vision board, origami, crochet, and the virtual adaptation of a craft project would be kind of asking each person if they already have a craft project that they've been wanting to do, or something that they've always wanted to learn for a long time, that maybe they have the things already in their home. Maybe they already have paper, scissors, pens, and could make a card. A lot of people have things lying around that they just haven't picked up in a while that they've been wanting to get back to. And then each person doing a different activity, kind of having an opportunity to show and tell and kind of sharing how those are progressing over the 4 weeks. Next slide. The quilting. So Sharon and Marvin, their groups have done a quilt. Do you want to share about this?
Yeah. So we, we're always looking for something that, we can do collectively. Obviously, this was pre-COVID. And so we had to determine as a group, what kind of quilt we wanted to do. Did we want to do individual quilts, baby quilts? Did we, we thought about it. Where would we get the materials from? Some people suggested, well, we could go to a thrift store and find some materials to cut up. And so basically how we got started was everybody kind of has that in the back of the closet thing that we've been meaning to get rid of, or something that we can, something that we can come up with initially to get us started. What size, and fortunately for us, we did have people in the group who had done quilts before. How big are the squares going to be? So we really got very excited about it, and it was just kind of a natural flow. So that when we started making the quilt, obviously the first thing was to, just cut out the squares. And this is where you really learn about the individual members' their some of their health challenges and some of their, you know, physical things in terms of arthritis, you know, who's good at holding scissors, who's left-handed, you know, that was an interesting thing when we were doing crochet to show a left-handed person how to crochet. So it got to be, it kind of was like a groundswell of excitement to work together. And it also gave us an opportunity while we're making the pieces for the quilt to have conversations about other things that we, you know, were concerned about. So, and what are we going to do for the top and the bottom, and what are we going to fill it with, and just kind of like going, you know, step by step on how to get this project completed. And it's a little time consuming, but it was fun. Everybody enjoyed it. And hopefully whenever we get back to Senior Olympics again, we will get to enter the quilt into the contest, because it you wouldn't think that little pieces of cloth, everybody bringing something to the table, so to speak, would result in such a beautiful project. But it did make us grow in terms of our relationships. I think it really bonded some people who were kind of not so familiar with me, particularly because I had not lived in the property for that long. And I think it was one of the best things that we could have done to really establish a solid circle of friends. So I'm very proud to have been a part of that.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. All right. Something else we've been doing is, I know that in person, a lot of these Circle of Friends groups have gone to visit a museum, visit an art gallery, go to a performance of some kind. But for us, since we can't do that, there are actually virtual museums. And this is something that we can really only do with people that are actually all on video. So I'm working on starting a group that is audio and video, so we won't be able to do this particular activity. But this is an example from the Louvre. So the Louvre in Paris has a great virtual tour. You can click on a bunch of different wings of different kind of areas in art, and click through, and you can choose, oh, do we want to go left or right? Zoom in on that painting. And we had some fun discussions where people were like getting really engaged and saying, oh, go left, go left. Oh, what's that? Click on that. What does that say? Oh, I wonder what this is. And like zooming in on paintings, and also laughing when we would get stuck in a corner or couldn't figure out which way was left, or we got lost a little bit in the tour. But I would highly recommend practicing beforehand. This took me and my co-facilitator probably an hour to kind of learn the navigation of the tools, which tours were better than other ones. Some of them are a little more difficult to navigate, so picking which ones are easiest to navigate. And sometimes there's a little video description of the painting, so clicking on that and making sure that your audio is going to work ahead of time so that you're not having those technical difficulties during the session. Next slide. So with other music and arts projects, for the arts and culture section, we've done a lot of listening to music together, singing along, discussing our favorite music, concerts that we've been to, favorite artists, instruments, genres. We've listened to classical music, we've listened to pop music, we've listened to oldies, we've listened to all sorts of different music. And then in person, you could attend a live artistic performance. And then the virtual adaptation is making sure that you're sharing your screen and audio, and there's live performances that you can watch that are live streamed from different symphonies or different musical artists. So you do that, or you can use a music player like Spotify or YouTube to play your music as well. And for Zoom, always clicking that optimize for video button. Okay, so we had a question. Virtual tours we've collected. We do have some listed in our training manual for Circle of Friends. So we'll be sending that out to all the participants, and that has a list of all our activities. Also, we have the link for the Louvre tour in there as well. And there's also a good Google History online tour that I put in there too. Sharon and Marvin, do you want to share about your Christmas song that you made?
Sure. So as a part of the culminating event, end of year event, we wanted to have some sort of a holiday celebration. And we asked for, I think Chips asked for, ideas about how are we going to do this, trying to connect up, the different, 7 different buildings of people who may or may not, participate in Circle of Friends. So, so I volunteered to come up with a song. We wanted to sing holiday songs, and we've learned in the past that trying to do that over Zoom can, it's well intended, but it can be a disaster for real. So, so I volunteered to come up with a holiday song that everybody kind of sort of knew and that we could, all kind of follow along, but it was from the lens of COVID-19. So the song was the 12 Days of Christmas, or the 12 Days of COVID-19 Christmas. So I won't try to sing it, but I will do a spoken word kind of reading it to everybody. So on the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a new mask for COVID-19. On the second day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 2 bars of soap and a new mask for COVID-19. On the third day of Christmas, my true love gave to me free toilet paper, 2 bars of soap, and a new mask for COVID-19. On the fourth day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 4 mason jars for canning, free toilet paper, 2 bars of soap, and a new mask for COVID-19. On the fifth day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a 5th of Hennessy, 4 mason jars, free toilet paper, 2 bars of soap, and a new mask for COVID-19. On the 6th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 6 cans of Lysol, a 5th of Hennessy, 4 mason jars, free toilet paper, 2 bars of soap, and a new mask for COVID-19. On the 7th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 7 pints of ice cream, 6 cans of Lysol, a 5th of Hennessy, 4 mason jars, free toilet paper, 2 bars of soap, and a new mask for COVID-19. On the 8th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 8 grandkids weeping, 7 pints of ice cream, 6 cans of Lysol, a 5th of Hennessy, 4 mason jars, free toilet paper, 2 bars of soap, and a new mask for COVID-19. On the 9th day of Christmas, my true love sent to me 9 people Zooming, 8 grandkids weeping, 7 pints of ice cream, 6 cans of Lysol, a 5th of Hennessy, 4 mason jars, free toilet paper, 2 bars of soap, and a new mask for COVID-19. On the 10th day of Christmas, my true love said to me, "It looks like you've gained 10 pounds, and a new mask for COVID-19. On the 11th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a case of Clorox bleach, the 10 pounds I've gained, 9 people Zooming, 8 grandkids weeping, 7 pints of ice cream, 6 cans of Lysol, a 5th of Hennessy, 4 mason jars, free toilet paper, 2 bars of soap, and a new mask for COVID-19. On the 12th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a vice president that looks like me, a case of Clorox bleach, the 10 pounds I've gained, 9 people Zooming, 8 grandkids weeping, 7 pints of ice cream, 6 cans of Lysol, a fifth of Hennessy, 4 mason jars, free toilet paper, 2 bars of soap, and a new mask for COVID-19.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
You got to sing that, Sharon. That's
So-
fantastic.
So even during the pandemic and with all of the challenges that we had, you know, trying to meet and stay connected, it's like it's forever still now, even with the vaccines coming along in the back of our minds. People need something to kind of take their minds off of what's going on, the restrictions that the seniors are experiencing, you know, as far as lockdown and the mask. And so, you know, it was just a way. Our facilitator here at La Chateau, the property that I live in, Dolores Quinn, and one of our other members, Scotta Clark, helped with the lyrics. You know, what are some of the things that we miss? What are some of the things that we're doing now that, you know, we never would have thought we would have really been concerned about? Who cares about toilet paper and Lysol? But right now we do. And it was just an opportunity to let everyone know that you're not going through this alone. Everybody's missing their grandkids. You know, sometimes we're sick of the Zoom calls, but this is the way our life is now. So let's poke a little fun at it, and, you know, and just keep in mind that it's temporary and we are going to make it through. So
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. I love it. Marla, can you advance to the next slide? We're kind of gonna rattle through the next activity so we still have time for questions at the end in the transition to maintenance section. So a movie night is something that people have done. With the virtual adaptations, this might be sharing audio only. So something that's audio, a small portion of a podcast, reading aloud a short story, reading aloud poetry, a song, making songs, or playing a recorded speech is something that people have done in some of our groups, and then discussing it. Next slide, please. We've also discussed local history. Over the summer, some of our participants were really interested in history, so we watched some videos on the St. Louis World's Fair, old Cardinals baseball history, how the arch was built, and we talked about it. And a lot of our participants had a lot of fun, interesting facts that they shared about history of St. Louis. And we're going to be focusing on Missouri history in our next group too, because people are really interested in that. And then for the writing and reflection, this is really any way for them to kind of connect or reflect on their experience in the group, and also kind of life experience and how maybe loneliness has affected them, or maybe how some of their favorite life events that they want to reflect on and reminisce on. So this could be a journal, gratitude list. We've done a gratitude list. We could do some short journal writing within the group, or kind of a homework activity where we're doing that throughout the week and following up to see how it's going on in our group. Next slide. Here's some reflection questions. It could be life reflection on childhood. Around the holidays, we'll like to share what are your traditions in your family? What do you like to do? What kind of foods do you cook? First jobs are always a fun talk. Neighborhoods, what school was for you, showing and sharing photos from when people were young, or current reflection, talking about what are you taking away from the group? Have you learned anything about yourself during the pandemic? How have you been coping for your feelings, and how has that worked for you? What's worked well? Next slide. So some of the other creative writing activities are writing letters to family members and friends. A lot of my participants will do cards. Creating a life storybook is something that Marvin shared earlier, which is a really beautiful opportunity for people to kind of make a little bit of a memoir, write down their favorite life stories, or maybe when times are tough, how they got through that, is really beautiful. Do you guys want to share anything additional about that? No? Okay.
Well,
Oh yeah?
Yes, well, we did a pen pal event at Health Vision. So, I mean, not event, but activity. We actually did, we had them to, we had address envelopes and then paper for them to actually write letters to people that they haven't seen. And so that we, and then we mailed them off. So we had in person and remote. We had to go back totally remote for everybody. We had 2 separate groups for those who weren't able to come out. But now everybody's totally remote. So this was an activity we had for those. We had like 5 seniors that were in person and then 5 that were remote. And so we dropped those, we had those bags delivered to them, and then they were addressed, they had envelopes and so they can write their letters. So they were able to do that as well. And another thing around just writing in family, we did a, we call legacy leaves. And so it was just a twist on a family tree. And so we had like fall leaves on a board that were dropped off to them where they would write themselves, their parents, and go back as far as they could. And then they would write in siblings.
Cool.
And
I
things
love
like
doing genealogy as an activity. That would be really fun to talk about kind of where your family came from. And I love that idea. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Also, creative writing could be starting a blog, writing a poem or a short story, anything like that. Next
Who
slide.
did Devin pen pal with?
Oh, yes. Devin, she's asking
Yes.
who.
So I didn't actually, you know what? I didn't write anything to anybody. I wish I should have, but I just kind of helped them. And then my mom actually was a part of the group. So she did write to some cousins that were out of town. So that
Okay,
was
so kind of writing to like family members or friends that you haven't seen in a while.
Mhm.
I love that. That's awesome. Marla, could you do the next slide? Excellent. All right. And I'm passing it over to Max again.
All right. Thanks, Anna. So I'll go through the maintenance fairly quick here. I know just because of time, and I know then we'll get to lessons learned and kind of wrap up with this. So I know a lot of us have talked about maintenance, and by the way, great stories from everyone. That was incredible to hear all the activities and things that people are doing. I think every Circle of Friends talk I hear, there's always something more that's coming about in all these groups, which is great. So with the concept of maintenance, I know a lot of you are getting groups started, and I mean, certainly the group can weigh in here on things the groups have been doing. Really, with maintenance and Circle of Friends, one of the advantages of this protocol is that it's really participant and peer led. And so as you start to get even closer, but you can even prep for this at the beginning of groups, it's really encourage that this group wants to continue if that's their motivating factor, and to identify really a few champions or people who want to either take the lead or have some creative ideas that they can do and touch base with facilitators as the group goes along. I think we've been finding out that, earlier on in groups, we've been touching base with participants who we feel can kind of pass the torch to, so to speak, and kind of continue and gain that momentum going forward. But I think as far facilitators can speak with other participants of this throughout the group and just gain some ideas of where it's going. Certainly some groups out there may not choose to continue for various reasons, and that's okay. And I know certainly Anna, Sharon, and Marvin have different perspectives on how maintenance has been handled, and certainly based on different settings. Always be open and flexible at people even after the 12 sessions are done, to touch base as far as ideas with groups and things that are going on. We still have, for one of our SLU groups, we had an open link over the holidays, and they were able to still meet by phone. I think they had 4 participants who were meeting over the holidays and just sharing things even by phone, not even by video too. So, but I should have told them about Sharon's Days of Christmas kind of a thing there too. So they would have loved that. But didn't know if others had words of wisdom on the maintenance. I know we'll get to lessons learned in a little bit, but I don't know if anyone else had thoughts on the maintenance stage, going from sessions to maintenance.
I would just say making it kind of a soft handoff So not just cutting it off, but kind of facilitating them if they want to keep meeting with each other, making sure that that's going to happen. So even if you're not going to be meeting with them, continuing on, maybe training someone to be able to set up their own Zoom link, or kind of connecting and making sure that you know who all is interested in keeping on meeting, and making a contact list and then sending that out to everyone, and then making sure that they know that they can still reach out to you for assistance or to check in to see how it's going.
Yeah, that's
Yes, with
that's a
the
great point on technology. Go ahead, Marvin.
yeah, with the housing authority, we have I think one of the questions was in the chat room was asking when do the facilitator depart. What we try to do, we try to make sure that we maintain training facilitators at all times. Because part of the maintenance and transition to other groups, it becomes a trust issue. With a lot of our residents, they become bonded, and so we have to make sure that we have someone there who can actually continue uh, the program and the services of the Circle of Friends. So they're very much part of that. Kind of like every confidentiality in the group, it stays in group. Once you become a member of the Circle of Friends, even if you move on, we have our facilitators actually contact those individuals and do a wellness check to make sure that they're on, to make sure that they still are part of what we do. So our facilitators are very good about doing that by doing follow-up with them. And if they do leave a group, or if they want to go into another group and share their experience, because they've already been in an existing group, they become very much a part of what we do in terms of maintenance, particularly in a low-income facility like the St. Louis Housing Authority. We have a lot of individuals that come in to do presentations, especially when the pandemic is not, you have a lot of people come in from different agencies and state agencies and things of that nature, and they make a lot of promises. And trust is a big issue. And that's one of the things that we put into our groups to make sure that the residents are comfortable with the people who are coming in doing presentation. Because, me as a social worker, I have issues with someone coming in, telling people they're going to do things and don't follow up with them. So that takes away from things that we try to build with our residents to get them to trust people, become friends, and things of that nature. So again, like I said, we try to maintain our facilitators, and we try to, and through Max and Marla, through ongoing training that they have, we make sure that they are linked in those particular trainings, but we can come up with new ideas how to maintain what we have developed over the years. So maintenance is a really big part of that, particularly if you're going to get future funding. We have to show that we are making success with the groups and the Circle of Friends. And again, like I said, here in the St. Louis area, we are expanding, and so the maintenance part is extremely important, because of the reason we want to get the ideal of the Circle of Friends being out there in the community, and that we can continue to do what we're doing, because it's helping a lot of people, particularly at this given time. Those people that was already considered lonely with the pandemic now, we have to do whatever we can to keep them motivated and being a part of the Circle of Friends. So that's why it's just extremely important that we kind of keep things going with promoting and making sure that our facilitators are part of what we do.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's a great point, Marvin. And I think to the slide here, as far as engagement with the group, and I think all of us have probably seen that the continuation, I think, is vital for this. And it also, I think, encourages people, and it's unique in that they almost become facilitators in their own community then, where they start to really get a motivation and kind of a momentum where there's word of mouth. And at the beginning, again, with recruitment that Sharon and Marvin showed with the pins and with the bulletin boards, and I think probably develop some swag or other marketing at some point to sell some stuff. I think that's exactly the energy I think we need through this to continue, because there's very few groups out there. A lot of it's just mainly provider led. So I think that this is a really, unique opportunity for communities. And as Anna mentioned, I think, make sure that people are open to contacting the facilitator later on, and be able to have open access to that. So we want to get to lessons learned. And as far as, including some of the other things, and I'll kind of, open this up or pinball maybe words of advice from all of us here. I know certainly the technology part here was my big wake up call, as I'm sure with many people were too. And I think just the fact that, for accessibility, people trying to not only get on Zoom or by phone, but I think just scheduling wise, I made an assumption, okay, a lot of people are at home, they're going to have more time and flexibility, but there's a lot of things going on in people's lives during that. I mean, the pandemic time has been extremely stressful for everybody. And so I think just being sensitive to where people are at in their life, and knowing that there could be some no-shows at some sessions, or, some struggles getting people onboarded to there as well. But I'll certainly open up to the people facilitating if any of you three have lessons learned or other words of wisdom on this slide.
I would say besides the technology piece, something that I've learned is that it's taking a lot more points of contact with each person to keep the group going than a typical in-person group might be, because with in-person they need to get in their car or get on the bus and travel to the group, so they are automatically remembering, oh, I have this on Wednesday or Thursday. With a virtual group, they need to remember to log into their email, see the email, click the link at a certain time. And so sometimes folks just need a call reminder the morning of. And with the pre-assessment, sometimes it's a lot of phone tag, but they need a little more time, a little more encouragement, especially with the pandemic. People haven't been talking to people maybe for months. And they need time to be heard, to be listened to, and listen to their story and encourage them and point out their strengths that you see in that conversation and why they would be a great addition to the group and why you want them in your group. So to make it really individualized.
As we've talked about a lot throughout. Oh, sorry, Marvin, Sharon, if you had any words of wisdom, I jumped in too quick.
Well, I just think it's important to remember that just because people have advanced in age, they still have desires, they still have concerns, just like the younger folks. What I try to remember is that each one of those, the uniqueness of each individual and what it is that made me want to be a part of the group, and how well, people interact. It's very easy for me to do a okay, check on you, I'm calling about you. But I kind of do at the end of each day, I do what's called a what have I learned today? What did I hear? Is there some information that I saw or knew about that might benefit someone else? I knew that some people were artists, but I didn't realize to what extent. So when I'm making these calls and doing exchange outside of the actual meeting, it is like a little mini circle of friends. We're still, just because we're not on the video or not face to face, the relationship building continues, or you should want for it to continue. I think that's what makes a really solid group. And, some people really appreciate that call outside of the meeting, just to say, hey, how you're doing? Or two people in the group watch the same soap operas. It's like, did you see what happened on Tuesday? Those kinds of things. So those are the things that we focus on, the human to human experience, and just letting people know that your level of sincerity doesn't just stop and end at a certain time or on a certain day, or you know, if we're not in the middle of a project, that I'm not thinking about you as a person, as a human being, just to call and say hi. And sometimes that leads to some other conversations that are very beneficial to each of us when we're talking. So it's the circle of friends has a very big connotation, and that's what we're striving for, is to continue those relationships and to, you know, have people understand that it's not about if we make a quilt, you know, it's about how we feel and care about each other.
Good point. Yep.
I think we're at 11 o'clock now, so maybe quickly go through the last ones here. And
yeah, well, I can let either, you know, you or Anna describe about the manual, but yeah, we have a training manual that's going to be available. It's a great kind of protocol or kind of primer for tips and things as you're diving into the world of Circle of Friends. And again, what Anna and Daniela did on this was amazing as far as their construction of it and all the sections on it too. So yeah, and copies are available by contacting Marla.
Danielle, if you'd like.
I'm sorry, I was having trouble getting unmuted here. I'm Danielle Wooten. I'm with Kansas City Shepherd Center, and we are really excited about this program and bringing it to Kansas City. And we know it's going to take a lot to get it going, and we want to offer some peer support. So we're scheduling a meeting for January the 26th at 9 a.m. via Zoom. If you're interested, contact me, let me know. You can also, I think, indicate that in the follow-up. And it'll just be a chance to network, share how it's going. Some of you have already got it started. Some of you are just going to be getting started, but we can share experiences with each other and even just talk about what kind of support do you want and need, and what would that look like. So we're going to kind of build it as it goes, and it depends on what you're needing. But we want everybody to be successful in this. We think that this is a really important need, fighting isolation, and an opportunity to grow together. So if you're interested, just let me know.
That's great. Thank you so much. And let me get, I don't know why that keeps doing that. So here is our information. I just want to, we can take a question or two quickly if people don't mind staying on a few minutes extra. But before we do that, I just cannot say enough thanks to Max, Anna, Marvin, Sharon for sharing the experiences. I hope everyone got some wonderful ideas. You learned about two different approaches to this, but both equally effective. And again, a thanks to Mark and Kathy and Carmelia and Danielle for your willingness to help this get started in Kansas City. I can't look into the chats because I'm sharing my screen, so let me do that. Is there maybe a question or two we could answer as way of wrapping up? Or we just overwhelmed everyone?
We've been also answering the questions in chat as well.
Oh, good. I wish there was a way to see that. One of the things for those of you that have started or have started planning, please email us the ideas and the activities and the strategies. There were a couple of great suggestions made. Just send an email and we will get those included. The training guide manual is a work in progress and will continue to evolve as we all learn more about this. So we would love to be able to include your ideas. So Kathy and Carmelia, is there anything else that we need to say in the way of wrapping up? Nope.
I'm just going to say best of luck to everyone who is going to implement this amazing program. And thank you to KC Shepherd Center for your leadership to convene those that are going to implement this. That's going to be really important to have that peer support. And excellent training today, Marla, Max, and team.
Well, thank you. It's the boots on the ground folks that made it so meaningful, I think. And we're just appreciative. So with that, I guess we will sign off. Carmelia, I think you're going to follow up afterwards with an email to with an evaluation and some additional information, but please know that we are available. So send any of us an email and we'll try to help where we can. So thank you and best of luck to everyone.